Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone. We have discussed section 1 in the until yesterday. Today we are going to start with section number 2. Did you go through these questions which are there after this section 1? Do you have access to this document? Do you have this document with you? Yes, okay, good. So please go through these questions, prepare them. If you have any questions, okay. So I have created one Piazza page. How many of you have received the link to Piazza? I have created a Piazza channel, Piazza page, on which I have added, I took your email IDs from Learn Gita, Live Gita course. They have a portal, right? So I took the email IDs from the portal and I have added you into Piazza. If you have not received, I can see if I can do it now. Let me. Okay, Piazza. Yeah, I am there in Piazza, manage class, and enrollment. Okay. Just a minute. I will share some link with you by which you can all enroll to this. Okay, sign up link. Whatever email ID you registered for your LGLG, Learn Gita, Live Gita course. So this is the link to register and the password is this. Right? So you can register on this, and there we can start a discussion forum. Means you can ask questions and you can answer also questions there. That will be a good platform to prepare and ask our questions. Right? Okay, so you go through these questions, and if you have any doubts or if you want to start a discussion, if you find something to be discussed, you post your question there in Piazza, and everybody can comment, write their answers there. If you want to post anonymously, that is also possible, right? You can post anonymously also there. Okay, so starting with section number 2. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshtarine Daya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vas Adi Gauravakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so section 2. The spirit of Bhagavad Gita. Is there something beyond matter? Okay, so the first this subsection is there something beyond matter? Okay. I will just read. Very often it is assumed that there is very little beyond what we have seen. Because of our limited experience, we tend to dismiss anything anti-material or anything beyond matter. Our situation is like that of a frog whose baby one day claimed to have seen a very big creature. The mother frog, in its attempt to fathom the size of the creature, began bloating itself, asking the baby frog if the creature was as big as itself now. Okay, means this creature is actually an elephant, let's say, an elephant. Now each time the frog bloated itself more, the baby would say, no, bigger. In this way, the mother frog gradually puffed up her body, and when it went beyond limit, it exploded with a bang. This instructive story could be our own when we get very puffed up with our own limited knowledge and assume that there is nothing beyond matter. However, our narrow understanding could cripple us, just like that exploding frog. So the idea here is that I have limited perception, right? My senses are limited, the power of the senses is limited, and what I can perceive is very limited with these senses. And if I base all my knowledge just on sense perception, just on empirically observed phenomena, then I can never have any knowledge. I can never I can never understand anything, right? I have to so I have to recognize that my senses are very limited, and the reality can be much beyond what my senses can perceive. Okay. Maybe question time. Can you give examples of things which are beyond your senses, which are beyond our senses? Can you give example of things which are beyond our senses? Okay. Let's see who gives the most convincing answer. Things which are beyond our senses, but still we know they exist. Okay. Size of the universe. Yes, it is beyond my senses. UV light, yes. UV light is a very good example. I cannot see it with my eyes, but I can have some device, some kind of intensity detector to be able to observe UV light. Okay, good answer, UV light. Life on other planet, we have not observed with our eyes, yes, true, but many people can say there is no life on other planets, right? Many people can say like that. Okay, a cell, okay, yes, a cell also we do not see with our eyes mostly, but under a microscope we can see. Okay, so I will make this question a little more difficult by adding a nuance to it, and that is, okay, I cannot observe, yes, an atom also, I cannot observe UV light, cell with my, or atom with my bare eyes, but I can have other devices, other instruments to observe these things, right? But is there something which is not even perceptible by those devices or instruments, but still we all accept that they exist? This is soul. Okay, soul, you are, yes, Krishna, yes, God, yes. I am talking about, let's say, within the purview of matter, means this material, in the material sense, means which everybody will agree, like nobody will say, for example, if you say soul, many people will say, no, there is no soul, like they won't agree, or they will kind of disagree, because soul is antimatter, or it's not matter. Krishna also is God, he is dark matter. Okay, dark matter is good example. Yeah, but mostly people won't make sense of it. Okay, it's a very difficult example, it's a good example, but the process of learning, no instrument can say about what's the process of our learning process. Very good answer, Praveen, very good answer. He says the process of learning itself, right? We are not observing it with our instruments, but we all experience it, right? And it's difficult to say how it happens, but still everybody agrees that yes, it happens. Process of learning. Wormhole. I don't know what is wormhole. Consciousness is not material. Consciousness. Okay. It's a difficult to understand term. What is consciousness? Okay. Something more easy to understand. Something easier. Living symptoms. Like moving my hand is a living symptom, and I can see it with my bare eyes also. I'll give an example, maybe to COVID-19. Good answer. But we can observe it under some microscope, right? Some microscope can show its structure, right? Okay. I'll give an example. Okay. How many of you have seen gravity? How many of you have seen gravity? Gravity. Okay. So that is my that is one example which I thought of. Gravity, you cannot see it, but still we believe it exists. Right? So what we see is just objects are moving downwards, right? If you have an object, you release it, it will fall downwards. But why is it falling? So Newton gave an explanation, it is because of gravity. Okay? And we all accept that, okay, there is gravitational force, gravity is there. But we cannot see gravity, or we cannot experience gravity, but we can just experience the objects falling down. Right? So this is our assumption that gravity exists. Okay. So gravity is beyond our immediate sense perception, but still we accept it that it exists. Now you can give more examples or ask questions if you have. You can give more examples. Okay. I can give another related example. So mass. You cannot see mass. Mass is, what is mass? Mass is just a quantity F is equal to ma, right? You quantify F in some way, you quantify A in some way, and their proportion is called mass. You have never seen it, you can never see it, you can never measure it also. What you measure is, okay, some force and some acceleration, but you cannot measure mass. That mass is just the ratio of force and acceleration. So you can never observe mass, you can never measure mass, but still you believe that mass exists, right? Okay. I think this is a difficult to understand topic, so we won't go too much into detail. Okay. So, but the idea is this, that if I just stick to my own sense perception, then even science cannot grow. Even the material science, or how the matter is working, even that cannot grow if we just stick to our limited experiences, right? So why Newton is recognized as father of science? Because he took science from direct perception to a space of mathematical equations, right? He wrote the equation F is equal to ma and other equations. So all these equations, so he took science to a different level, means from direct perception to a space of equations and variables, like F is a variable, M is a variable, A is a variable, right? So that is why Newton is considered the father of modern science. So he took us beyond immediate sense perception. Okay, but so just like to explain the movement of particles and things like that, Newton formulated an underlying cause, that this is the underlying cause. F is equal to ma, force, mass, acceleration. He coined these terms, he coined these concepts, and he tried to explain things, right? And then he experimentally also shown, okay, this is actually, this understanding works. So, 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 okay, we'll read further. This instructive story could be well with our own, could well be our own, when we get very puffed up of our own limited knowledge and assume that there is nothing beyond matter. However, our narrow understanding could cripple us just like that exploding frog. Right? If I just say, oh, I don't accept, and I will just stick to my own understanding, then I can never grow, I can never learn. Right? If, let's say, this has happened even in science. You know Boltzmann. So Boltzmann proposed that what is air? So air was considered, I don't remember exactly, maybe a fluid earlier. But he proposed, no, these are small particles of air molecules which are colliding against the wall, and then, so he gave a very different perspective of fluids or of air, right? These are particles which are colliding against the wall, and that exchange of momentum is called as pressure, which it exerts on the wall. And so in this way he laid the foundations of, anybody knows which branch of physics he laid the foundations of? Boltzmann. I can give a hint. You have heard of Boltzmann constant. So Boltzmann's constant is used where? Thermodynamics, statistical mechanics. Yes. So he laid the foundation of statistical physics, and with that, with using statistical physics, he tried to explain thermodynamics. That how thermodynamics means, which is like, let's say, pressure and temperature. He tried to explain these macroscopic properties in terms of microscopic movements of molecules, things like that. Right. So when he proposed this idea for the first time, his peers, the other scientists and other professors working with him, they did not accept. They rejected his idea, and they were like this frog who did not accept that there can be small molecules which are colliding, and then these macroscopic properties like temperature, pressure, volume, these can be explained in terms of these microscopic entities. Means statistics on these microscopic entities, right? So they did not accept it, and Boltzmann was so much humiliated, his theory was rejected, and so much so that he committed suicide. And after his death only, people later recognized that what idea he had given was actually very profound, and then it laid the foundations of statistical physics and statistical mechanics, right? So means if we just become so rigid, we close our eyes and we just say, no, whatever I know, that is all in all, whatever I have experienced is all in all, then even the material science cannot grow. What to speak of transcendental science, which requires great qualification or great depth of purity to be able to observe things as they are, right? So we should not cripple us with our current understanding. So that's what he's saying. Our narrow understanding should not cripple us, just like that of an exploding frog. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. Next is, we saw in section 1, the previous section, that our body is a mystical coupling of the body that is material and soul that is anti-material. Thus, Bhagavad Gita teaches us about objects consisting of two natures, spirit and matter, in the following manner. The world that we perceive is a place where unlimited jivas are encaged in 8.4 million different bodies. The world is there to help us to rediscover our divinity, to purify our consciousness. So here again, consciousness is a concept which explains the phenomena which we see around us. Like why am I the way I am, right? Why do we all have different preferences in life? We have different interests. Different things affect us in different ways. So why is this individual differences? Why are these individual differences there? I'll give an example. Let's say the concept of atom. So if you take oxygen molecule, okay, atom or molecule, oxygen molecule, you take one oxygen molecule, it will show exactly same properties as any other oxygen molecule, right? And so you do not need any other explanation to explain oxygen molecule. But if you take oxygen molecule and let's say hydrogen molecule or chlorine molecule, they show different properties. So you explain it with the help of the concept, okay, this is oxygen molecule, this is chlorine molecule, they are different, that is why they are showing different properties. And then you can go further and analyze their atomic structure and their nature of their bonding. Okay, oxygen is showing this kind of a bond, hydrogen is showing this kind of a bond, chlorine is showing this kind of a bond. So, and when you see differences, then you analyze and then you give explanation that what caused this difference. Similarly, the all living entities are there, so our behavior can be explained with the help of let's say consciousness or something. But why are there differences between our interests, our likings and dislikings, preferences? All this is there because to explain that, so the concept is consciousness, and consciousness can have different levels. Somebody can have very pure consciousness, somebody can have little less pure consciousness, somebody's consciousness may be affected by the three modes in different ways. So the three modes, they are causing differences. So sattvagun, rajagun, tamogun, and depending on their proportions, we manifest different behaviors, right? So this is the kind of thing which is being talked of here. So we do not. So now somebody can say, "Can you show me soul? Can you show me three modes?" So you can simply ask, "Can you show me gravity?" You cannot see gravity. Gravity is a concept which explains a phenomena that why the ball is falling downwards. Similarly, consciousness is a concept which explains the phenomena, as we discussed, as Professor David Deutsch also appreciates, that why human beings are different from rocks and stones in planets, right? Why human beings are different. So Bhagavad Gita explains that difference with the help of this concept of consciousness. And it goes further deep that why we are different. That again is explained in terms of three modes and how they interact with the consciousness. So I think everything is very, very scientific, because everything, so the concepts are defined and their effects on our direct perception, that is explained. And then these concepts, how they are related amongst each other, that is also explained very nicely in Bhagavad Gita. Like consciousness is there, how different individual beings they interact, how three modes interact with consciousness, how Krishna interacts with our consciousness, means the super consciousness that interacts with our jiva consciousness, right? So these relationships and these entities are explained in so much depth. So if we are like an exploding frog, then we will just say, "Oh, I don't believe that, I have not seen," or we just dismiss it for no reason. But if we are open-minded and if we are inquisitive and if we are sober, then we will say, "Okay, let me give it a try, let me see what is this explanation and how it is useful for me and what I can get from this knowledge for myself, for my life," right? So that is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita, to show us, okay, there is this option also there with you. Do you want to pursue this option? Okay. So the world is there to help us rediscover our divinity. This too is not required. Help us rediscover our divinity, to purify our consciousness. All our endeavor must be to ascertain the truth, not to get entangled in ignorance. So our endeavors must be what? To ascertain the truth, not to get entangled in ignorance, right? That's what every scientist wants to do. We want to ascertain the truth. Right? If today, let's say you go to a research lab or you ask your professor, I don't think Newton's law is correct because I think the law should be this, F is equal to ma square, something like that. And the professor will say, why do you think like that? And then you start giving arguments, and so your purpose is not to ascertain the truth, but to establish yourself as a great thinker or as a different kind of thinker. So, but that should not be the goal. Self-aggrandizement should not be the goal. Means showing to the world, see how great I am. Like it has happened actually. I have seen sometimes I make something which is, I know it is not very great, but still I have to tell people that, oh, this is so great and this is the thing which you must have. Right? Even if I know that this is not so great. I have seen this. I had to do this in some situations, and but I was aware, okay, what I'm saying is not correct, but anyways, in that situation I had to do, because we are presenting to some people who are going to fund our ideas, and so that's how the funding people, they work. So this was in Oxford in UK. We have to, so anyways, different kind of experience. But here the purpose is not to aggrandize ourselves, not to get funding from people, that if I present in a very glamorous way, then people will give me more funding. That should not be the goal. But the goal is to ascertain the truths, to know the truths, and to know the truth and to use that knowledge in our life. So distinguishing spirit from matter is the first step in this process. Okay. So Bhagavad Gita starts with this very deep topic. The topic is the self. Who am I? So because this is something which is important for all. For example, if I don't know chemistry, right, I can still survive, right? Because I may not need chemistry, or I may not need the knowledge of bonding, how hydrogen bonding and how sp3, what is it called, sp3, sp2, what is it called in organic chemistry? sp2 diarization, no, what is it called? sp2 bonding, that's hybridization. How sp2 hybridization works, I may not know, and I don't know, I won't be losing anything, right? Similarly, somebody may not know machine learning, and they need not know machine learning. They are living their lives happily. They are good in their own business. Let's say somebody is doing a business of clothes. He is happy. He does not need machine learning. Somebody is doing a business of let's say food grains. He doesn't need machine learning. And even if he needs, he will hire somebody to build a system. Like Jeff Bezos does not know machine learning. Who is Jeff Bezos? He is the founder and CEO of Amazon. So the owner of the owner of Amazon. So he does not know machine learning, but he can hire so many PhDs like us who can do machine learning for him. So what I mean to say is that is there one knowledge which everybody requires, and that knowledge is the knowledge of self, which everybody needs. And that is the topic of Bhagavad Gita. So in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says that destination is called the Sanatana sky, the eternal sky, the spiritual sky. In this material world, we find that everything is temporary. It comes into being, stays for some time, produces some byproducts, means kids and children, sons and daughters, dwindles, means gets old, and then vanishes, means dies. So we come into being, we grow, we stay for some time, we produce some byproducts, we dwindle, we grow old, and then we vanish. So this is the story of my material body, my material experiences. That is the law of the material world. Whether we use as an example this body or a piece of fruit or anything. So this body is also an experience, this material experience. The piece of fruit is also a material experience for me. And they all show the same evolution, that they are born, they grow, they stay for some time, they produce some byproducts, and then they dwindle and then vanish. So that world consists of another nature which is Sanatana. So that word means so it's very very easy to understand. Let me talk in terms of physics. So even in physics, you see things are coming into existence. For example, stones are being formed or gases are being formed. But then there is something. So let's talk of gases or stones. So gases are formed, then they interact, they react, they disintegrate, they become something else. Similarly, the rocks also, they interact with heat and light and air and everything, disintegrates, again becomes a part of something else, maybe some chemical combinations or maybe some atomic combinations, rearrangements, and takes shape of another thing. Like let's say they become stars or they become planets or they become asteroids. So depending on how they interact with other entities, right? So but what physicists say, okay, even if they are showing this temporary behavior means like the same stone, sometimes it is a stone, sometimes it becomes star, sometimes it becomes a planet, sometimes it becomes an asteroid or something. But there are some underlying laws which are eternal. So that is I'm telling very nothing from Bhagavad Gita. This is what we see in material world, in our everyday scientific world around us. So they say even if things are disintegrating and changing their shape, changing their form, changing their properties, but the laws are eternal. The laws of nature are eternal. For example, let's talk of Newton. So Newton will say F is equal to ma is a law which is eternal. It is applicable everywhere, at all times, all places, all circumstances, in all frames of references. This is Newton will say. And he will say, so he's trying to find what is that unchanging, eternal law, right? That eternal underlying reality or truth, he tries to formulate as a law, right? So you can now, using this law, based on this law governs the satellites which you fire in the outer sky, the planets, how they are moving, even how we are experiencing weight. So all these things are explained using that underlying law, which Newton says it is something like absolute truth, or something like that eternal thing which, based on which everything is evolving. So, but Bhagavad Gita, okay, even this Newton law is limited, right? It is not applicable in the frames of references which are close to speed of light. It is not applicable in microscopic scale. So many limitations. Similarly, whatever law in physics you take presently, it can explain a very limited aspect of the world. Cannot explain beyond that, beyond its boundary. They have very limited boundary. You may take latest developments in physics as well. Okay, so now, but Bhagavad Gita talks about a very deep reality. Okay, we are observing this phenomena, this things evolving around us, but the underlying laws which are governing, so Gita talks about them. So first of all, Bhagavad Gita says, okay, there is an eternal existence, and because this world is temporary, there must be something underlying, something more fundamental, which is eternal. So, which is our actual abode. First of all, we understand, okay, this world is temporary, but we are, the living being is eternal, right? So that eternal law or eternal, that is the living entity. Now, this living entity is eternal, but this world is temporary. So there must be something which this living entity actually belongs to, which means eternal world. So, which means, okay, living entity is experiencing, and this world is temporary experiences, right? So there must be some world which has eternal experiences which are characteristic for this living entity, which are the actual whole home of this living entity. So that is referred to as that Sanatana sky, or that is called the spiritual world, where the living entity can experience the eternity which it is seeking, because living entity is eternal, but experiences are temporary. So the living entity is seeking eternal experiences. So those can be had only in the spiritual world. So that is how Gita explains the existence of spiritual world. Krishna says, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manashasthani indriyani prakritir sthani karshati. So he says, okay, we are in this world of temporary experiences and we are struggling. Why? Because we want eternity, and this world is temporary, full of temporary experiences. So that's why we are struggling. Prakritir sthani karshati. And then he says, na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavaka. But there is the other world where we can get eternal experiences, which is our actual home. So this is 15.6 and 7, I think 6 and 7. So in Bhagavad Gita, so where Krishna explains this concept. Okay, I think it's late now. We can stop here. But today's discussion was, I think, little difficult. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. And so go through this section, complete it, and there are no questions as of now. I have to create some questions here. Okay, go through this and solve section 1 questions. You can start a discussion or post your answers. Okay, maybe you can post answers or not all answers. I don't know. So okay, let's start something on Piazza. Thank you. Hare Krishna.